Most people have been walking every morning thinking they are burning belly fat, but getting it completely wrong. The truth about what actually happens inside your body during a fasted morning walk will genuinely surprise you today. This is not about motivation or trendy fitness advice that sounds good but delivers absolutely nothing real to your body. This is about your hormones, your metabolic state, and the precise biological chain reaction that begins before you even move. What if the single most powerful fat-burning window of your entire day happens before you eat your first meal? Most people sleep through it, eat through it, or unknowingly destroy it with one small but critical morning mistake. Before we get into that mistake, you need to understand what your body is actually doing the moment you wake up. After 8 to 10 hours without food, your blood sugar has settled quietly into a calm and stable low baseline. Your insulin, the hormone that controls whether your body stores fat or burns it, is sitting at its lowest point. This is not a small detail. This is the most important hormonal condition your body can be in all day. Insulin is the gatekeeper between fat storage and fat release, and right now in the morning, that gate is open. When insulin is low, a process called lipolysis activates, which means your body begins breaking down stored fat for energy. Enzymes like hormone-sensitive lipase become active and start pulling fatty acids out of your fat tissue and into your bloodstream. At the same time, your liver glycogen stores have been partially used overnight to keep your brain quietly functioning. This means your body is no longer swimming in easy glucose from your last meal like it was hours ago. You are sitting in a unique metabolic window where your body is already leaning toward fat as a preferred fuel source. Think of it like a car that is already shifted into the right gear before it starts climbing a steep hill. Your body is primed, positioned, and ready, but it still needs one final signal to actually begin mobilizing fat in earnest. That signal is movement, and the moment you step outside and begin walking, everything inside you starts to shift dramatically. Your muscles demand energy, your heart rate rises gently, and your body turns to the most available fuel it has nearby. Because insulin is low and glucose is limited, your body reaches deeper into fat tissue to pull out what it needs. This is why research consistently shows higher rates of fat oxidation during fasted exercise compared to exercising after eating a meal. Your body is not being tricked or hacked, it is simply responding logically to the metabolic environment you have created overnight. But here is where most people make a critical error in thinking that stops them from ever seeing real results. They assume that burning more fat during a 30-minute walk automatically means they will lose more belly fat over time. That assumption is dangerous because the human body is incredibly adaptive and always looking for ways to maintain its current state. If you burn slightly more fat during your morning walk, but then feel hungrier and eat more at breakfast, nothing changes. If your body burns fat in the morning but you unconsciously move less during the afternoon, the math stays exactly the same. Fat loss is never decided in a single 30-minute window. It is decided by your total hormonal environment across an entire day. This is why understanding belly fat specifically matters so much more than simply counting how many calories you burn during your walk. Belly fat, particularly the fat sitting deep around your internal organs, is biologically different from fat stored anywhere else on your body. It has a far higher density of receptors that respond to two specific hormones, and those hormones are insulin and cortisol. When insulin spikes repeatedly throughout your day because of refined carbohydrates or constant snacking, your abdominal region absorbs and stores fat aggressively. The belly region is uniquely sensitive to insulin signals, which is why it fills up faster than your arms or legs. Over time, repeated cycles of high insulin followed by low insulin can actually reduce your body's sensitivity to insulin altogether. When that happens, your body needs more and more insulin to do the same job, and fat mobilization becomes increasingly harder. This is the cycle that makes belly fat feel so impossibly stubborn, even when you're eating less and moving more. The second hormone, cortisol, is equally important and far more misunderstood by most people trying to lose weight around their waist. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and in small doses in the morning, it is completely healthy and actually helps you wake up. But when stress is chronic, sleep is poor, or your workouts are too intense, cortisol stays elevated far longer than it should. Visceral belly fat has a particularly strong sensitivity to cortisol, meaning prolonged high cortisol literally tells your body to store fat abdominally. This explains why people under intense chronic stress often notice their waistline growing even when they have not dramatically changed their eating habits. Now here is where fasted morning walking becomes genuinely interesting and worth taking seriously as a long-term metabolic strategy for your body. First, by walking before eating, you extend the duration of low insulin in your body beyond the overnight fasting period naturally. This extended low insulin window supports continued lipolysis and reduces the storage signals that would otherwise encourage your body to pack fat away. Second, moderate movement, especially outdoors in natural morning light, actively helps regulate your stress axis and supports your body's circadian rhythm alignment. Unlike high-intensity training, which can spike cortisol sharply, a brisk morning walk tends to produce a gentle balancing effect on your hormones. You're not just burning calories during those 40 minutes, you're reshaping the hormonal environment that controls fat storage for hours afterward. This is the insight that separates people who see results from people who walk every morning and wonder why nothing is changing. Now, the next question that matters practically is how long you actually need to walk before any of this becomes metabolically meaningful. 5 minutes of casual walking will not create a meaningful shift in your fat oxidation enzymes or your metabolic fuel preference patterns. During the first few minutes of movement, your body still leans on blood glucose and whatever muscle glycogen remains from the night before. Your heart rate needs time to stabilize at a level that genuinely stimulates the fat-burning enzymes to operate more aggressively and efficiently. The transition from burning primarily glucose to burning a higher proportion of fat does not happen instantly, like flipping a light switch. Most exercise physiologists suggest that somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes of moderate fasted walking provides sufficient time for meaningful fat oxidation. This time frame allows your heart rate to rise steadily, blood flow to your muscles to increase, and your metabolism to shift. But intensity matters just as much as how long you walk, and getting the intensity wrong destroys the entire metabolic advantage you built overnight. If you walk too slowly, with almost no effort, your heart rate stays too low to create a meaningful energy demand. If you push too hard and sprint or do intense intervals while fasted, your cortisol will spike sharply and work against you. The sweet spot is what exercise scientists call the moderate fat oxidation zone, and there's a simple test to know you are there.
You should be able to speak in short sentences, but your breathing is noticeably heavier than when you are sitting completely still. You feel engaged, slightly warm, and working, but you are not gasping, exhausted, or feeling like you need to stop anytime soon. This zone keeps insulin low, cortisol manageable, and fat oxidation running at its most favorable rate for the duration of your walk. Consistency at this moderate intensity 5 or 6 times per week will always outperform one extreme session that leaves you wrecked for days. Now, we need to talk about the single most common mistake that silently destroys everything you just built during your overnight fast completely. Most people do not even realize they are making this mistake because it feels so small and harmless that it seems irrelevant. That mistake is consuming anything with sugar before your morning walk, even something as innocent as a small glass of fruit juice. A sweetened coffee, a biscuit, a flavored drink, even a small piece of fruit can quietly undo your entire fasted metabolic state. Here is exactly why this happens at the physiological level, so you never accidentally make this mistake again after understanding the mechanism. Even a modest rise in blood glucose is enough to trigger your pancreas to release insulin into your bloodstream within minutes. The moment insulin rises, even moderately, lipolysis is suppressed, and the enzymes responsible for releasing fatty acids become significantly less active immediately. Your body shifts back toward prioritizing glucose as its primary fuel source, because that is always what insulin tells your body to do. Your walk is no longer happening in a fasted metabolic state. Hormonally, you have transitioned into a fed state without realizing it. The proportion of energy you now burn from fat during that walk drops significantly compared to what it would have been otherwise. This is why so many people report that morning walking made absolutely no visible difference to their belly fat after weeks of effort. The problem was never the walking. The problem was the hormonal disruption happening in the minutes before they even stepped outside their door. If your goal is to protect and maximize the metabolic advantage of your fasted morning state, the solution is actually beautifully simple. Before your walk, drink a glass of plain water to rehydrate after the overnight fast and support healthy circulation and metabolic function. If you need mental alertness before walking, black coffee without sugar is a widely used and physiologically supported option that works well. Caffeine can gently enhance fat oxidation and raise energy levels without meaningfully stimulating insulin, as long as there is no sugar added. That is all you need: water or black coffee, then walk. Everything else can wait until after your session is completely finished. Now, let us talk about what happens inside your body after the walk ends, because this is where the real magic actually compounds. The human body does not stop responding to exercise the moment you walk back through your front door and sit back down. The metabolic signals triggered during your fasted morning walk continue influencing your body's behavior for several hours into the rest of your day. The first and most important post-walk effect is what happens to your insulin sensitivity during the hours that follow your session. When your muscles work during that morning walk, they use up stored glycogen and become significantly more responsive to insulin signals afterward. Later, when you eat your first meal and carbohydrates enter your bloodstream, your muscles absorb that glucose far more efficiently than usual. This means the post-meal blood sugar spike that would normally follow breakfast is smaller, steadier, and far less demanding on your pancreas.
Smaller insulin spikes after meals mean less fat storage signaling, better metabolic stability, and a body that is gradually becoming more efficient. Over days and weeks of repeating this pattern, the cumulative improvement in insulin sensitivity becomes one of the most powerful metabolic changes possible. The second post-walk effect involves cortisol regulation and how morning sunlight exposure interacts with your body's natural stress and sleep cycles. Natural morning light combined with gentle physical movement helps anchor your circadian rhythm, which controls cortisol patterns throughout your entire waking day. When your circadian rhythm is well regulated, cortisol follows a predictable and healthy arc instead of fluctuating erratically due to poor sleep or stress. Better regulated cortisol means your visceral fat tissue receives fewer signals to accumulate and store fat around your abdominal organs over time. There is also a psychological ripple effect that most people underestimate when they think about the long-term power of this morning habit. Starting your day with intentional movement, fresh air, and a sense of discipline quietly reshapes how you make decisions for hours afterward. After completing a fasted morning walk, you are significantly more likely to make balanced food choices at breakfast instead of reaching for sugar. You feel calmer, steadier, and more in control of your body, which reinforces healthy behaviors that compound invisibly over weeks and months. This psychological momentum is not separate from your physiology. Your mindset directly influences your behaviors, which directly influence your hormonal environment every day. Now, the most important truth that this entire explanation has been building toward is also the hardest truth for most people to accept. Belly fat does not disappear in a week. It does not respond to a few good days of walking before breakfast either.
Fat loss is a slow, cumulative biological process that depends entirely on consistently maintaining the right hormonal environment over weeks and months. Think of belly fat as a large block of ice sitting in a room where the temperature has just barely dropped below freezing. It does not shatter or explode in response to the cold. It melts imperceptibly, almost invisibly at first, then gradually more and more. A single fasted morning walk might only mobilize a small amount of fatty acids. One day alone will never make a visible difference. But when you repeat that behavior 5 or 6 times per week for 4 to 8 weeks without disrupting the hormonal conditions, everything changes. You are not burning fat at superhuman speed. You are steadily reducing the storage signals while consistently enhancing the conditions that favor fat mobilization. A shrinking waistline is almost never the result of one exceptional session where everything went perfectly and you pushed your absolute hardest. It is almost always the product of 30 consistent sessions where nothing dramatic happened, but nothing was disrupted by small, careless daily habits either. This is the profound power of consistency in human physiology, and it is the one variable most people abandon too early to experience. Adding sugar to your morning coffee daily, eating before your walk, sleeping poorly, or training too intensely will neutralize the small advantage you build. Your body responds to the overall pattern it experiences across days and weeks, not to isolated perfect moments scattered randomly between weeks of inconsistency. After 1 month of this habit done correctly, you may not see a dramatically flat stomach staring back at you in the mirror, but you will likely notice your clothes fitting slightly differently around the waist, your energy feeling steadier, and your cravings becoming noticeably quieter.
After 2 months of consistent, fasted morning walks without the common mistakes, those subtle changes become increasingly visible and increasingly measurable in real life. This is the fundamental difference between strategies driven by emotional impatience and strategies that are genuinely grounded in how human physiology actually operates. One approach chases the dramatic transformation that fits neatly into a 7-day challenge. The other builds a sustainable biological system that lasts forever. The most important truth in all of this is that fat melts slowly, but it melts reliably when the right conditions are maintained consistently. And if everything required to create those conditions each morning is simply a pair of shoes, 30 to 45 minutes, and true consistency, then start. Do not turn this into something extreme or complicated, because complexity is what makes people quit before the results ever have a chance to appear. Do not push yourself to exhaustion while fasting, because that spike in cortisol will undo more than the walk itself will ever create. Do not sabotage the entire metabolic advantage you built overnight with a single sweetened drink consumed thoughtlessly in the 10 minutes before you walk. Instead, walk for 30 to 45 minutes at a moderate pace that feels purposeful, not leisurely, but not breathlessly intense or exhausting either. Do it before breakfast every morning with nothing but water or unsweetened black coffee as your only preparation before stepping outside your door. Stay consistent for at least 4 to 8 weeks without judging results based on a single week of imperfect effort and emotional impatience. Think of each morning walk as a gentle metabolic reset, a quiet signal to your body that today is about stability and consistency. Your body does not need shock tactics or extreme restriction or the kind of suffering that most fitness content demands in exchange for results. It needs the right hormonal environment repeated consistently long enough for the cumulative effects to become visible in the mirror and on the scale. The biggest transformation you will ever experience rarely begins with something dramatic, complicated, or painful that required enormous sacrifice and perfect execution from day one. It begins with something simple repeated every morning with enough patience and understanding to let your biology do exactly what it was designed to do.